do it as suggestions in Google Docs. You just hit accept, 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 and then you never learn how to do it. And by doing this, I'm teaching you how to write. Um, it's sort of at a college level where the structure makes sense, where the sentences each build upon one another. The sentence structure is varied, the vocabulary is wide. So because they started getting better, I started having the UC reader read ones that I thought were close enough, and it was just sort of a matter of grammar that I was looking at things and there's something wrong here and there. And then so there are two of them, and they liked the direction they were going in. They use a standard UC rubric. So remember I explained to you how admissions for private schools are. There's a committee, who's on the committee, how the committee works, how we talk to one another, how we read, what we read. Like we don't read every single one. We have an initial cut, actually two initial cuts before we get to table. UC is different. The admissions officers don't read the essays. The admissions office, there's just thousands, literally thousands of essay readers. They train them in gymnasiums and stadiums. They're usually like English teachers or retired English teachers. You get trained, you apply, you get trained, and then they test you by giving you a bunch of essays to grade, and then if you grade them correctly to the rubric that they see, and you get the same scores as they did, they take you. And then from then on, you're paid by the piece. So there's just a giant bank of essays to be read, a bunch of files to be read, and then they just go into the bank and they pull down how many ever they want to read, and they get, I think it's $7 per application. It used to be around somewhere around there, $11, depending on where you are and how many there are. So that's how they get through 125,000 things, right? Because you turn it in. The due date is in mid-November, and they tell you in March. So to turn around and read November, December, January, February, March. By the way, December, right, is Christmas, so they don't work during Christmas. Almost some readers do, but the application committee does. So they need to have all the applications read, scored, and done to go to committee to be decided in that last month. So you basically have to read 125,000 applications within about 90 days. So you can imagine like how much the volume of that is. It's not all 125,000 because there are a ton of people that turn in incomplete applications. Like you'll open it up and they're like there's an essay missing, or they didn't fill out or whatever. Generally, the application won't allow you to submit, but like some people, you'd be amazed, like some people turn in their UC application and in the essay portion they'll write like 3 sentences. So obviously we'll throw all those out, right? And then a tremendous amount of people, and I always find this surprising because it's in the directions on the website, turn in essays that are just a paragraph. It's just one paragraph. It's not actually an essay. And that's really common, sadly really common, and all those get crossed out. And so at the very least, it needs to have at least 4 paragraphs. It needs to have an introduction and a conclusion. It needs to have a topic sentence. It needs to have varied vocabulary. It needs to have varied sentence structure. And it has to have an understandable storyline that has a beginning, middle, and end. And that's what I told you, right? So in order to just get read, right, you need to have those things. The better quality of those things you have, the higher you will score. Okay, so there was more weight put on the essays because UC does not have teacher recommendations and UC does not have standardized tests anymore, right? So basically they have the application, which is where you fill in your information, and these. So so the question is oh my God, how do they still choose a class? It's really easy. Most essays are terrible. I can read particularly for the more competitive schools, because people make the mistake of just copying and pasting their UC application essays into private school application essays. Sometimes we even have the wrong name of the school, or it's totally written for another school. You know, those are really easy to see. So when I'm doing more competitive applications, I can read all day, a full 8 to 10 hour day. And you can imagine, I eat lunch, I take snacks, I cuddle my dog, I buy things on Poshmark. So that's my breaks, and that's what I do. I can read, it takes me about between 8 and 11 minutes to read an application and score an application. So you can imagine how many I get through in a day, right? So it's roughly 6 an hour, and I work, so I can get through 60. Sometimes I can get through 100, especially if they're bad. And I can go all day and not find one single one. It's actually not uncommon, and it's not just that I'm being terrible. Most people can go through. Finding somebody is rare. And usually when we find it, it's like, oh my god, so good, right? And you get really excited. Okay, so now you know the process. So I wanted to move on to what I'm seeing in these UC essays that you handed in to me. They clearly have a beginning and middle and end. They all have a nice hook. They all have a varied sentence structure. What they don't have, let me go through what they don't have. A lot of them started out really interesting and ended kind of soft or not enriched. You're still doing the ending, right? So let me go over what a good ending to a UC essay is. All the UC essays, it's like, what's next? All these things you pursued, your favorite academic subject inside and outside the classroom. Okay, so now that you did that, what's next? You developed this talent or skill over several years in different ways, and you found different ways of building it. So what's next? Your community service, you built up this community service project, and you're about to leave. What happens to your community service next? You did a leadership thing, and you nurtured this thing, and you created this thing, and it's different, and it's now yours. You can put your stamp of your name on it. Okay, so what's next? Who takes it over? How is it sustained, right? Your significant challenge, I say, okay, you had a significant challenge, and you got yourself through it. Because you survived that thing, what's next? If you don't have that thing on the end, the thing on the end is actually what I'm taking, right? Whatever's next is happening at my school. So make sure that end thing is like, oh, I can see it so clearly, right? Those of you who are applying to private schools, we read these much more closely. So, like, the people who read the essay are in the room, whereas with UC it's not the case. You just get you just get a number. This is a rubric score of 4 or whatever, and you get scored on everything, and then you get one sort of gang score at the end, and then they decide based on that, and also where you applied, what you applied in, and how many people are in that major before, and how much availability we have on that campus, and then that's decided. Whereas private schools, there's a certain amount of that. If we took a ton of environmental science kids and, if we're building an environmental science program, then I'm going to take more environmental science kids. I'm going to really build that pipeline. And we're told at the beginning of the year what we need. Like, don't get me any more of this, get me more of this, or we're trying to build this program, find the kids to go here. And so every school will have this. I then also know what other schools are looking for, so I know what I'm competing with. Like, I know Harvard has to come out strong this year because they destroyed their campus, right? They lost their president, a bunch of teachers left, their handling of Gaza went very poorly, and for the first time they took a big hit. So now that they got to come out, and by the way, it's not like, oh, people aren't applying to Harvard. They'll apply to Harvard. 100,000 people will still apply to Harvard, but where will they go in the end, right? Last year, I had 2 students that applied to Brown early, didn't get in, and then they went to Harvard. I don't think that would be the case anymore. I think they might have they also got into Yale and Wesleyan. I think maybe, given their experience, they might have chosen different institutions. But that being said, if you have a Harvard on the top of your resume for the rest of your life, every single door opens to you. A Harvard education, by the way, their alumni association and all of that is incredible. And like, there are secret societies that exist on these campuses, and they give you opportunity that you just cannot imagine. And it is terrific. And having been one of the people who received stuff from that, it's great. If you can be inducted into an organization, or you get asked to join something, that it's crazy the amount of help that you can get from that. And just because you have, I went to Yale. They teach you on the first day. They don't do this anymore as much because it freaked everybody out. It totally freaked me out. They put you on this giant lawn, right? And all the freshmen are on the giant lawn. And they're like, okay, stand up if you were the valedictorian of your class. And like the whole lawn stands up. I was not the valedictorian of my class. I did not stand up. Stand up if you were captain of a team at your school. Like the whole thing. If you were captain of 2 teams, the whole thing. If you were student body president, stand up. If you were the star of your play, stand up. If you have a national reputation, and and I stood up for basically nothing. And I went home and I cried. I was like, oh my God, what am I doing here, right? They changed it because it was really privilege-based before. So now, if you're a first-generation college student, stand up. If you are immigrant, you stand up. The skids that are the scariest, though, I have to say, are the ones that are first-gen and low income and English language learners, and they also stand up for all the other things. Then you're like, dang, that is like, I'm gonna get to know that kid and make it all me. So they do these things. It's really great though, because then they say, okay, so this is now the baseline. It's the same way at UC Berkeley, right? All the kids that went to UC Berkeley would generally be excellent, right? But it's like, okay, that's now baseline. You are all now C students. You are now average. So now what happens is you now determine excellence from here. And so then you go and you do well and you try and you fail and you get help and you do better. And then there's these societies, these groups that sort of track people, and they're sort of looking for interesting people to join their societies. And there are ones that are secret and ones that aren't. And secret, right? Skull and Bones is not really secret. They have a giant building on campus. But then you get into these different organizations, and they help you for the rest of your life. I went to USC grad school. The admissions rate was about 3%, and I needed financial aid, and I got there, and I got a ride to go, and I didn't know this, but they teach you when you sit on that lawn, you are now an Eli. Yale, people go to Yale are called Eli's because it's for Ellie, short for Elihu Yale, who founded Yale. There's this chant that you say, Eli, Eli. Are you another one, right? Ever heard the term old school ties? It's not ties like I'm tied to you. It's like a physical tie. People used to wear ties with the emblems of the colleges on it. So you could go to a meeting, you could see the other person. So I get to DreamWorks. I'm the youngest. I'm the one of 3 women out of 45 people. I am one of 4 people of color. I got an office. It's the first office I've ever had. My office had a shower, which was weird. They have a bathroom with a shower and all this stuff. It was really cool. They gave me a cashmere blanket as my welcome gift. I was like, this is amazing. And then I realized that you work at this place so much that the reason why you have a nice couch and a cashmere blanket is you may sleep in it. That's why there's a shower here. Like you just moved into your work apartment. But I didn't know that. But I was walking around and I was trying to get my bearing. I felt really out of place. And there was a thing that came up on my calendar. and it was like the highest ranking black woman in DreamWorks. And I was like, dang, I thought I was in trouble because I have imposter syndrome. And she came in and she walked in and she said, Eli. And I was like, holy crap, that's why you're here. And she says, what doors do you need open? I'm like all of them. I'm from Gardena. Like, I don't have anything. She's like, don't worry, I didn't have anything either. We'll work on it. She told me who to avoid. You know what her best advice is? I don't know how well you watch the news. Is never take a meeting with Harvey Weinstein. I don't know if you know who he is. He is the reason why the Me Too movement was started. She looked out for him. And I didn't know why. He was one of the most powerful people in Hollywood at the time. And I was like, hey, why would I want to take a meeting? She was like, never take a meeting with Harvey Weinstein. I was like, okay. So I knew. So why do we go to these schools? There is not really a lot of Eli around outside of these older schools. They give you help and like if you get into Skull and Bones, they'll pay for your grad school, and they'll pay if you have any loans, they'll pay them all automatically upon entry. So like that's a pretty cool thing. And then outside of these societies, there's something called Mellon Mays. Mellon Mays is for women, and if you go to one of these colleges, if you do well in your sophomore year, you can apply for it, and it will pay for all of your graduate school, including a PhD and your residency. If you go to medical school, it'll pay all of your tuition, all of your living expenses, and anywhere in the world. So, like if you go to Wellesley has the highest number of Mellon Mays women, and it just opens all the doors. So, when you're thinking about choosing a school or deciding to go to a school or to not go to school, do it based on these opportunities, right? What do they have there? Somebody told me yesterday, if you're pursuing business, you should join a sorority. That's sort of a weird thing. There are sororities, there are business and fraternities and sororities on some schools. I would argue it's much better to join the competitive internship programs with the five, what they call the big five consultant firms, and they each have recruitment programs, including also Apple and Google and most, like Salesforce, all the most competitive large corporations have competitive internship programs that you can apply to. There are student groups on every single campus that prepare you to do that. So you join, like there's a consulting club on UC Berkeley's campus that is really, really well known. It's competitive to get into. You probably have to apply once or twice unless you have a real estate license or you already have something that is an asset to them. But you start from the very beginning, and then you get into these clubs, and then they help you. They have alumni who come back and train you, and then you apply, and hopefully the person you interview with, like, this is Eli, right? So, like, the guy who does Apple's internship program, the one that pays $20,000 a summer, the guy who runs that is a first-gen person of color, Asian guy, and he went to Pitzer. So, like, obviously, he loves it when Pitzer people come through. Oh, and those of you who met Johnny Eck the other day, Johnny Eck is somebody who is on the decision committee for one of the most competitive. He does the BlackRock internship. Again, that one is only $15,000 a year for this summer, but it pays your living expenses. So in the end, it turns out to be about $20. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? So I had this conversation earlier. People will sell you things all the time, offhandedly. Don't make your life decisions, even for me, but ask a professional person. Or go to the website and look at Deloitte, which is one of the most powerful consulting firms, right? If you're into business, how does their internship program work? If you want to go into tech, go to the big tech companies, look at their internship programs, look at the requirements. Then usually you'll see, by the way, this is a skill you should use for the rest of your life. You'll see all the names of the kids who have won it before. You take those names, you feed that into LinkedIn, and then you'll see their LinkedIn profiles, and you can see all the things they did. And then you take those, and then you put all those profiles up together, and you can tell what that committee was looking for, right? Because you'll see the 10 people they chose. So in other words, like, let's say I took that into my internship program, and you wanted to be in that same internship program next year. You would go look at the profiles of all those people, and you see what the similarity is, and you would see that all of those people were in bamboo, right? So if you want to be in that cohort next year, get your ass in bamboo, because you know that that is a pipeline to that internship. By the way, this is pretty common knowledge. It's how people navigate the world. What you don't have is parents who've done this their whole life, right? This is how parents like get new jobs and stuff. Right? When you use LinkedIn. Now, there's a question, should I have a LinkedIn profile as a high school student? There are high school students that have LinkedIn profiles. You should only have LinkedIn profiles if you have something to put there that's not stupid, right? So, like, don't go in there and say, you know, I walk dogs or something, right? If you have a really strong profile, put it in there. But if not, don't. And the first people you should invite to your LinkedIn profile is your teachers, right? And then people like me. And then you met Johnny X, so you go home and you link Johnny X to your thing. And then each one of us has connections to thousands of people. So later on, when you put up on your thing, I'm looking for an internship, and this is my qualifications. Please look at my profile. And it'll come up on my LinkedIn feed. I'm like, oh wow, Sophie's looking for an internship. I should link her to so and so who I know. So that's how you use it. Okay? Does anybody have any questions? All right. So now you don't have to like figure this out. You know how this works. Also, when you get to school, there's college and career centers, and there's also college and career centers on your high school campuses. You can go to them, and they will give you things. The problem is there tends to be a lot of stuff. What you want to do is you want to make a friend in there. The one in mine, her, oddly, it was linked to financially. Her name is Ruby. I used to babysit her kids on the weekend, and she found me all my scholarships and stuff, and she also helped me find opportunities because she knew me. So when something came across the desk where it was announced in her staff meeting, she'd be like, oh, I know who to call, and I just got a lot of opportunities. The biggest way I got opportunities is from older students. I went, I found, I met people, and they linked me up with things, or they showed me like this club is better, do this one, not that one. But don't find people like, it's oftentimes people will find people, oh, do this, it's chill, right? Yes, you should self-care, you should chill, you should crochet little stuffies, you should go out on the weekends, you should eat Thai food on the beach and do all those things. Your building of your resume, your building of what you want to put in your future, those experiences should not be chill, because other people are running, right? You can chill, but you don't expect to get the same things, right? Everything, it's a difficult conversation, because I want to say everything is earned, because there are a whole lot of people who get a lot of stuff and it's not earned, right? It is a privilege of race, it's a privilege of class, it's a privilege of gender that they get stuff. However, that does not mean that like, oh, well, I'm not in this thing, so I'll just hang and maybe it'll come to my front doorstep. It won't, right? You're going to have to find ways to claw your way there. However, when you get there, because I've been the person who like can give out opportunity to people, I love a kid who clawed their way there. I will always take a kid that had less than the kid that had more. I get in trouble for that all the time. Like, oh, you didn't take this donor's kid. Yup. Because I took this kid. And I can always counter argue, right? For example, I'm going to use your example. There are two people applied when you applied to Beyond Differences. And the other kid's parent has a private plane, flies around, and is a huge donor. But I kind of only had one slot. And I took you. And then it was like, you didn't take the guy with the plane? Literally, that was the line. You didn't take the guy with the plane? And I said, no, but let me tell you who I did take. And when I say who you are, where you're from, what you do, and the perspective you bring, yeah, way better. Because I put the two applications side by side. Yeah, this kid's father has a plane, but his application sucked. And he just thought he'd get it because his dad owns a plant. So, you know, when I put them side by side, you can see it. And that's the kid I'm looking for. I'm always looking for that kid that I can say, yeah. Because you might not own a plane one day. Maybe you're on like plane track. Maybe you get a plane. I don't know. I don't get a plane. It's really bad for the environment. Don't get a private plane. That's really terrible, right? You can fly coach. Nobody will recognize you. You look like average Chinese guy. So, like Jerry Yang, the guy inventor of Yahoo, he flies commercial all the time because nobody recognizes it because he looks like standard Chinese guy. But he's one of the original billionaires, right? So if you get, my hope is that if you become plane guy, or not plane guy, that you will pay it forward. You will find a way to find the next Jackie Law. That you will find a way to find not one, maybe 100 Jackie Laws, and make sure that they get to where they need to be, and that you can see them because you can see the authenticity of your own self is what made you enabled you to get to where you are. So when you look at these other applications, you don't see SRO, you don't see single parent, you don't see food bank, you don't see that as deficit, but you see it as 100%. Those are the reasons why I'm doing this. Right? You had all of those things, and not only did you have them, you had the ability to articulate it, and you had intellectual curiosity. Now, that's what sold me, right? And the other kid had none of those things. So you may sit in the world, and yeah, that kid's going to get a lot of stuff. Hands down, kid's going to get a lot of stuff. But that doesn't mean that you won't, right? So I sometimes I read these essays, and there's sort of this undercurrent of that we're begging for something, and you're not. You absolutely have what you need to get there. You just need to be able to articulate it. And that you will somehow be lesser than the guy when you get there. You won't be. You will be better. He'll sit next to you in class, but he doesn't know what you know. Right? Okay. Does anybody have any questions? That's the end of what I'm trying to say because I wanted to come out more in these essays. I need more of you in those essays. And your thoughts and your, not just I did this and then I did this and then I did this. I'm looking for the kid. I'm looking for the person. It's not the what, it is the you who did it. Okay. Mia, do you have essays to turn back?
Oh, but only to 2 people.
Okay. Do you want to turn back?
Yeah.
Okay. So Hawaiian food, I will work with to get Hawaiian food. And I handed you this stack. I'm hoping to get through it today. Today's mostly a work period. There were a couple of you that I talked to yesterday. Either you want to explain something to me about your transcript, or you want to talk to me about a specific essay. I have created small private corner in the back where previously, what was there? What do we have in the closet? All boxes of art and stuff. So we put that in scary closet number 2, and now we have someplace to sit. Do you want to take a photograph of that for him so that he can have it?
She just also only and I just
Oh, I'm putting you in charge of lunchtime topic of conversation. And don't go to Jackie and make Jackie. I knew immediately what was wrong.
I feel like
You weren't thinking that? No, you were going to make somebody else do it? Okay, good. Yeah, I just told you that.
how was your writing?